Welcome back. Welcome back to another Detroit is Different inside Detroit is Different Studios. And in studio, I got a young brother that really ain't that young. So that means that I'm getting old, right? The guy is very creative when it comes to how you put things together with music, especially the keys, but so much more than the keys. Here's a lot of things, and I met him through one of the others masters in music that I know years ago, right? And then I go over to his crib, they rehearsing. Then I look up and it's like a stack of almost every Black Panther biography that you'd expect. And I'm like, what is this jazz player that has to be almost fresh out of high school diving so deep into Geronimo Pratt and so many other things, but also very well respected in the jazz world. And from the jazz world, he has entered so much of the dance music world and just really a great feel of music all together. Held down so many spaces. And right now, he is a force that you should be aware of, and really the flavors are there. Ian Fink, how you doing, my brother?
I'm all right, man. How you doing?
Oh, man, very well, very well.
Good. Happy to be here.
Yes, sir.
Finally.
Yeah, this is way too long. As I said,
Definitely
it should have been way before when I was just, bouncing around on stage, because before a lot of people knew me for microphones rapping.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen me do that before.
A lot of times, yeah.
I know, and I've retired.
Really?
I've retired, man, and I'm coming out of retirement for a couple things.
Good.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So,
damn, I didn't know that.
You know me from those days when I would be like leading bands and joking with y'all half the time. Exactly.
Man, I mean, it was good. It was good though. You was rocking the stage. You was killing it. I mean, you had some good tunes. You had the one like if Detroit was heaven.
Yeah.
Love that tune. Love it.
Oh man. See, you actually the brother listens. So in the archives, if you ever Google like your YouTubes or your Spotify, you look up Khary Frazier, you have a couple songs and check that out.
Mm-hmm.
But the greatest thing about me doing music, especially towards the end, is I met all these cool ass players, like between you, Darius, Alex,
Mm-hmm.
And now you guys are like legends. Raphael, man, the list can go on. Let's see. Who else? Like Nate played with us.
Oh yeah, Nate Wynn.
Yeah, man. So many different people, man.
Yeah.
Jellic played with me.
Oh man.
All these different legends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I'm talking all this about music, if you don't know, this is kind of how you get together with the people that are cool enough to be in a band.
Mm-hmm.
You've been that for a long time. These start actually framing Detroit stories, man. Where do your people and your roots tie to the city of Detroit?
Well, my dad was born in Detroit, and so was my grandpa, actually.
So that's 2 generations, obviously.
Yeah, 2 generations of Detroiters.
Okay.
My mom is from New York, so yeah, my dad is the one that it's that side of the family. That's Detroiters, basically.
Here.
Yeah.
So you said granddad here too.
Mm-hmm.
So that make you third. What side of town? What part of town was your granddad at? Your family whereabouts?
Actually, this side of town.
For real?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they were Jewish, and this was the area. I mean, right here. This is like he came up on like Dexter, and he lived on Cortland. He lived on like Sturdivant. He lived on like Fullerton, he said too. Like basically Dexter, Linwood area.
This is that neighborhood.
This is indeed that neighborhood.
Okay. Did you ever come over this way with your granddad or your dad, and the blocks kind of connect to it?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely showed me it, and they were like, yeah, this, it was the way you explain the family history to your kids type thing.
Okay. Yeah, because I hear oftentimes that this is a Jewish home, as many homes on this block were, to the point where it's been Jewish people that have come in these homes and say that different scripts from the Torah are hidden inside of some of the moldings as special prayers for enter different rooms.
Yeah. it's interesting. I mean, there's that. There's like definitely. I think they have what they call mezuzahs. Those are the things that like are little things that they go in the doorway. And there's like scrolls in there, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely a deep history for sure. I mean, and yeah, definitely pretty deep. Very, very interesting history. The that history and the link between that and the Black history of Detroit too. Like
Yeah, because if you know the layers of it,
very layered.
a lot of the Jewish people couldn't live throughout the city of Detroit. So Jewish people were forced to live in certain neighborhoods. Like
hmm
it's often uplifted the redlining for Black people,
hmm
and a lot of the discrimination and racism throughout the American history. I don't know if it's uplifted the way that sometimes the the bigotry and the oppression that Black people have faced and other people have faced is not uplifted like in a lot of Jewish traditions. And that's for many reasons, I think. Some of it's assimilation, some of it's just they just see the whiteness. But even, one of the coolest things, the Fisher building is in the middle of the city because Max Fisher, being Jewish, was told that he could not own property and build a building downtown.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's
Wow.
why he said, "I'm about to build the biggest building, the tallest building in the city of Detroit, right in the center of Detroit, where I could put a building." So
Mhm.
it's like layers like that that do exist in these stories, and oftentimes it's like as Jewish families moved,
Mhm.
Black families move into these communities,
Exactly.
and that relationship, and it's still tension. As much as I'm talking about it,
Definitely
it's
tension
tension.
for real. Like it's definitely not a fully kind of it's a very complicated relationship for
Yes.
real. Like and it isn't
Hmm.
just like, because you do have the fact that yeah, like they did like Jews definitely did sell their homes to Black people more than anyone else. Like
Hmm.
white people not so much, you know what I mean? Like or non-Jewish white people like not so much kind of thing. So it's a very interesting thing, and yet you still also have the fact that just like any other immigrant group, they moved en masse, you know what I mean? And did mass movements in that case out of the city. And I mean in a northwesterly direction though. That's the thing. Like
Yeah. So like Oak Park, especially.
Oak Park, Southfield,
Hmm.
yep, all that.
All right. So like in that framing, what neighborhood? And no, before we even go there, we got to talk mom. Mom from New York. What brought your mom from New York to Detroit?
She she met my dad in college, I think,
Mm.
and
Where at?
Brandeis and went
Brandeis. I don't even know where Brandeis is.
it's in Massachusetts.
Okay.
So they went there, and she basically moved here to,
Mm.
to when they got married, essentially.
Okay. So your dad had game. Shout
Yeah,
out to Pops.
you know, he did. So yeah, she decided to move here,
Hmm.
and she's a New Yorker, and also like was had pretty deep roots in Boston too. She was living in Boston like as an adult,
Mm.
and yeah, they moved to Detroit. She moved to Detroit when she was probably about. I mean, they had to be what, like 30, something like that.
Mm.
So yeah,
Okay. All right. So in Detroit, and then the family starts. What neighborhood y'all growing up in?
I grew up in Metro Detroit in in West Bloomfield.
What was that like?
It was an interesting thing. I mean, it was it's odd. I mean, it's an interesting place. It's one of the more ethnically diverse suburbs,
Hmm.
and but definitely not a very large Black population. Most like, you know what I mean? It's like I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like I'm not sure what the actual population is. I know it's growing now, actually.
Yeah, it's definitely more Black folks out that way. But for
Yeah,
you growing up, did you feel like a tension being like, okay, it's a Black kid in class?
yeah. I mean, yeah, and that, and also being you know a member of both communities, it was definitely an interesting situation.
Hmm.
Very racially odd, I guess. I
Hmm.
mean, probably a lot of people have that kind of experience, being black in the suburbs and whatnot. So, you know, it was cool in that, like, I had friends and stuff like that. It was definitely not like any kind of like super like hate filled, just like totally messed up, like terrible
childhood.
no, I wasn't like it was definitely it had some odd goings on, but definitely, you know what I mean.
So let's talk about the music, man. What connects you to music, and when do you start that journey?
That's to me, that's the big, I mean, honestly, that's the thing that's kept it all together for me, frankly. I mean, it's like I started listening to music when I was like really young, my mom was a musician and also my grandmother. So she was the one that really got me into um playing music. I started taking piano lessons when I was 4.
Wow.
Yeah,
Were you at 4? It's like when I think of 4-year-old in piano lessons, that seems like that could be a lot.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, it seems very odd that you would ask a 4-year-old if they wanted to take piano lessons and then take their answer as a serious answer and then like hold them to it for the rest of their whole childhood type vibe. It's like, but it's like, nah, I see you got potential. So I will hold you to that. And I'm glad that she did, because when I was young, I also started playing drums. I started listening to music like of all types, like rock, pop. Like my first favorite band was The Police. And
Roxanne.
yeah, The Police. I was into the Beatles. I was into jazz because my auntie was a huge jazz fan, like my mother's sister.
Okay, so now it sounded like a lot of music is on your mom's side. And you even mentioned your mom, musician. What did your mom play?
She sang.
Okay.
And she also took piano lessons when she was young.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was she's definitely very musically inclined.
What did she sing?
She was in choirs and she sang like any kind of stuff that she liked to listen to. Like, she was a fan of like James Taylor. She liked, any kind of stuff. Like, it's all, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, tons of things.
So music was always around, and you mentioned the jazz collection from your aunt, and you also mentioned your grandmother in music too.
I actually just in the past few years learned that she was a church pianist and organist, which is really incredible because, it's interesting to know that, because that's how, they were heavy church people for generations.
And this is in Boston.
No, this is in New York.
Oh,
but before that, they came to New York. Like my grandfather came to New York by way of like he was in Florida. Yeah, so like Melbourne, Florida, I think. They were heavily involved in the community there, in the Black community, and like the church community. So, yeah, there's a history of piano playing on that side of the family that I actually wasn't aware of until pretty recently. Yeah.
Okay. So in this 4-year-old learning the keys, because the keys definitely, that's when I think of music, no offense to other musicians, it definitely feels that the layers of the keys and learning it and getting it. And when I say the layers, meaning the foundation of a lot of music, though through the rhythm of the drum and the beat of it is carrying the pace there, but all of the accents, adding in like the tunes, like the drums alone, which I love, are going to drive it. But it's the keys that usually put everything together. It can make it feel happy, make it feel sad, add the character to it.
Yeah.
That's really a lot of the keys.
It is. It's that chordal element. It's the chords. Because the piano is also a percussion instrument too. So it's like percussion and harmony and, kind of, it has lead instrument capacities as well. It's just and all the keys are just laid out right there kind of thing. You don't have to be like you don't have to like, there's nothing to it but to play the keys, just to play the notes that are right there. So it helps you most people find, I think, that the piano is the easiest instrument for them to learn music on because of that. It's not like you're learning like the violin where you have to learn these fingerings and it's just not set up. The piano is very linear.
Mm.
Yeah.
And you learn this and you take to it even at a young age. When
Yeah.
did you really start like appreciating it,
Appreciating.
playing the keys?
I was appreciating. I would say that for the first 5 to 8 years of the piano, I mean, it was definitely like a thing where I was taking classical lessons for my
Mhm.
first like 8 years or so. And learning classical music was very technically oriented. It was about kind of getting your fingers to where it feels natural to just play and learning these different like crossovers and stuff. So I would say that the first like 8 years and the classical study, it gave me the foundation to just be able to play whatever I wanted. But then when I was like 11 or 12, I think maybe 12, I got into jazz, and that is where you start to learn how to improvise.
Mm.
And that was where, for me, I think it started to become a thing where it was less about just playing pieces, you know, uh, playing pieces as they're written, kind of just trying to get it to sound as right as possible. And then with jazz, then it moves into improvising and actually learning how to play music just like that's coming straight out of your head, you know what I mean? And improvising on the spot. That's a different kind of situation. And I really think that all musicians should be able to do that, because that makes it so that you're not just, it makes it so that you can actually express
Mm.
yourself from but the classical stuff that had helped my hands to be able to support the weight of whatever was going to be coming out of my mind, kind of
Mm.
vibe, you know what I mean?
Okay. So this is still at a very young age, you and jazz beginning that relationship.
Yeah.
You uplift your aunt. And,
Yeah.
I'm guessing at that age, I mean, how many cats your age were like really diving into jazz at that time?
I mean, not too many, but I met most of them,
Mm.
like the ones like Alex White. I've been knowing him since like we was in like 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, my auntie was the one that got she was the biggest jazz fan. Like, she used to live in New York City, and she used to go and see like Billy Taylor and the Jazzmobile. She used to go see like any jazz musician that you can think of. Her and my uncle Bobby were huge jazz fans. So she was the one that was like the jazz person. She gave me like CDs when I was young. She gave me like when I was really young, she gave me this CD of like Quincy Jones. Is that compilation called From Q with Love.
Mm.
That's got, a lot of great Quincy Jones stuff on there.
Mm.
So that was where a lot of my jazz and that kind of stuff came from in terms of
Okay.
listening.
Okay. So that's the listening and the playing.
Yeah.
Now, as you're going along, meeting the different players and building this, and you talk about improvising,
Mhm.
what's that expression? Like, do you even have like any of those old tapes or any of that stuff that you used to do as you're starting out in your jazz journey?
I mean, the process of that was, because that is really where I really started to really be in Detroit, is when I started playing jazz. That was where my jazz education basically brought me to Detroit, like in a serious way, to where like my whole education happened. From when I was 12, I went to a jazz camp that was it was it was by the Arts League of Michigan, which became the Carr Center.
Mhm.
The Carr Center, which is currently in Detroit. And I met Rodney Whitaker. The camp was run by Rodney Whitaker, Shahida Nurullah, who I was mentioning earlier, um, Rick Rowe, all these kind of people that were Detroit jazz people. And I don't know if I met Marcus Belgrave there, but I met Marcus Belgrave when I was auditioning for Civic Jazz Orchestra at the DSO.
Mm,
So those two were my earliest kind of like experiences with jazz that brought me to Detroit kind of
okay.
vibe.
All right. And seeing this and around legends that you're uplifting,
Hmm.
that where are you at now, like just in that journey as far as like other than jazz? Are you still playing other things? Are you still what are you listening to? What are you inspired by? Do you even see yourself as a musician? Give me some of the feedback of a young Ian looking at this world of music in that introduction.
Well, I'm still deeply rooted in jazz, very much so. I still consider myself like a jazz, and I say jazz because jazz is you could use
Jazz is many things.
jazz is many things. You know what I
Jazz
mean?
is
There's
from Bitches Brew
yeah,
to Songbird to I actually had this debate with my grandma, rest in peace, Granny, where she was saying that Duke Ellington is more big band, and I was like, I think big band is still an arc of jazz, Granny, and she was like, no, it's not. But shout out, she was in Cincinnati and
that's real.
Cincinnati's Jazz Fest, but I think it's even a little bit of oh man, my body's slipping. The guy that really inspired it's a little bit of Louis Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
and him inspiring James Brown, but Louis Jordan's so inspired by Louis Armstrong. Like
Yeah.
it's built on, as you say, improvisation with all these different instruments and musicians
Mm-hmm.
kind of coming together. So it's a lot that you can say what jazz is. And also, shout out to John Conyers, America's uh, first recognized
Oh
art
yeah.
form through the Congress.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Jazz is like as a as a musical base, like it's a base from which you can really go anywhere, pretty much. I mean, because just the sheer, I mean, jazz musicians, people who have jazz training, I would say have the largest degree of versatility because there's such a degree of personal invention while you're playing. And when you're asked to be in any situation, any music, especially like recording in the recording studio, all the Motown session musicians were jazz trained as well, like all of them. So, and Marcus Belgrave was one of them, like James Jamerson. I mean, he definitely was,
Mhm.
yeah, like they were serious jazz players. And so for me, I would say I'm in the same mold of people that came up playing jazz. I'm still very rooted in that. I'm very rooted in like Detroit jazz in this tradition.
And then even Roy Brooks, but I'm actually going back in
Man,
time.
yeah.
And if you
Roy
don't know Roy
Brooks,
Brooks,
dog.
study some Roy Brooks. Shout out to Jalo for introducing me to him.
Shouts out to Jallo for
Another
real.
great jazz artist as well.
Hmm.
But I'm talking about like at that early age, as a teenager, as you're getting introduced and
Hmm.
kind of going through, are you seeing yourself as a jazz artist as a career? What's your thought process as you're doing the music? Or are you just like, I love this so much that I want to keep doing this? What's your take? I know what the hip hop journey is.
Right.
Share with me your music journey.
Well, it was definitely led by a the fun of playing jazz. I mean,
Mm,
it's fun to improvise and be playing music in a group with people, and that was the part that actually made me start to enjoy like music more and see it as something that was something that I'd want to do because it playing classical music is different. It was very much like a thing of recitals of kind of like athletic performance type vibes, like where you're just kind of learning a piece, playing it as well as possible, doing so in a competition setting or something like that. And then that's the sort of thing. So
mhm.
with jazz, I was able to actually interact with other people, other musicians, but then would also get to know them as people. So it was, there's like a social element to it that I just kind of grew into. And I think that when I was young, I started to see that it was something that I was good at, something that I had potential in. And then when I was in ninth grade and I was like 14 or so, I was in Civic Jazz Orchestra, which is through the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. And doing that, that was where I auditioned with Marcus Belgrave. I got into that. I got into Marcus Belgrave's orchestra, so that was really cool. Then the next year, actually, I got in 8th grade. Then in ninth grade, Rodney Whitaker became the head of that.
Wow.
And that was the year that I actually started to play gigs. And so that probably was the thing where this is the first time that I've ever gotten paid to do something. You know what I mean? Like I'm getting paid like pretty well for a 14-year-old to play a gig. And it's like they would call us for things that they had at the at the Max Fisher Center or other like private gigs, and they'd pay like $100 or something like that. And it's like, oh, okay, now I got $100. Like I don't even have a car or anything like that. It's like so that was like, here's the actual. So it's not just here's how to play the piano. It's like, here's actually like you can support yourself doing this type thing. So.
All right. And then for that experience, what's it like taking that in, just playing with a lot of these other seasoned players? Because now you just are joining the band and being the young guy in the band. What's the young guy in the band perspective in the first place?
Well, I mean, it's like you better like, you're forced to pretty much rise to the occasion. You're forced to get yourself to a point where you can get on stage with these people and not be the little guy on stage. You know what I mean? You want to be like on their level. So you're trying to really like get serious about it, and they're taking you seriously, and you're kind of being treated like as like an adult in a way, where it's like, they're just like, yeah, because then they'll call you for gigs. You know what I mean? If they have a gig, and that's and that's definitely something that I've heard is like a very serious thing in Detroit, like the passing down of the learning and the opportunities, like, and the gig opportunities and stuff. Like, all the people that I know that were like Marcus Belgrave's students, like Jerry Allen and Bob Hurst, and people who are my teachers, they all talk about how like that was kind of the thing. They would get called for gigs by Marcus Belgrave. It's not just like you're taking lessons with them and you're just kind of like a student. This is like you're also on the bandstand type thing, and you're learning like right there. And so, yeah, you're surrounded by a bunch of older people, and it was daunting, but it definitely got you to where you're like, yeah, I can do this.
And as you uplift Marcus Belgrave, a couple of times you mentioned him, and I didn't even really pour in to contextualize, because I often do this, but Marcus Belgrave is a jazz legend. And built an institution for many people to connect to, but very approachable. And when he was here, he was very approachable, but poured so much into the community of jazz, not just in Detroit, but even in America.
Yeah.
So when we think of legends in music, an institution to even shout out to Tamashian Jones is doing a documentary.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Tamashian.
On Marcus Belgrave, and he's like, yeah, man, we got Branford Marsalis and all of these other folks, and, and like the Harry Connick Juniors were looking to like this legend of a player, but also sharing and uplifting in community. And Detroit has some of those anchors in jazz, similar somewhat in certain other styles of hip hop and dance music, but legends that walk amongst us, that were walking amongst us in the city of Detroit, and still many that walk amongst us in the city of Detroit,
right? But
across the world are like, people stop like Michael Jackson or something like that. Marcus Belgrave was one of them.
Yeah. He was a lot like Amp Fiddler in that he was in that the ways that they were giving of themselves, the way that they passed their knowledge down to the younger generation. Marcus Belgrave is like, I mean, the number of people who were either students of Marcus Belgrave or students of his students, which I was as well. Like I was like, I played with him and learned from him directly. And my teacher, Jerry Allen, another great Detroit pianist,
Yes.
one of the best
Yes.
of all time, and Robert Hurst, one of the greatest bass players ever from Detroit. They were all Marcus's students, like first generation students, and so I'm like a second generation student of Marcus, and also like first generation. Because I played with him when I was in his group when I got to be of college age.
So now all of this is going on, and I want to kind of go back into the other things that you're just listening to as you're building more of your love and appreciation for music. So outside of jazz, as you're growing this love for jazz and really seeing yourself as a jazz musician, what else you listening to?
Man, I'm listening to. Oh man, I mean, all right. So when I'm like young, like 4, 5, and 6, I'm like getting into like the Police, who I love, and the Beatles. I'm into that kind of thing. I'm into Billy Joel when I get into like, he was a big. I love Billy Joel. He was a big like
technically playing the piano,
yeah,
like by default.
Yeah, no, he was a big piano influence on me for real. And so I was into that. Then as I get into 4th and 5th grade, I'm into like Nirvana and like rock and kind of like stuff like that. And I'm also into like what the hell, like Weird Al and like other weird little.
Okay.
I'm also into like Limp Bizkit and like that kind of new metal stuff and Korn and all those things. And then in 7th grade, I'm getting into like in sixth and like kind of middle school, I'm getting into like Radiohead. I'm getting into, Prince. I got into, I'm getting into a lot of different stuff. And like, mainly, I was also into metal throughout middle school. But by like, I think by like high school, I started to really get into like electronic music. I was into like Aphex Twin and Boards of Canada and Tortoise and things like that. And then I also got into more jazz at the same time. I was into jazz the whole time, but in high school I got into like Sun Ra and like out jazz. Like
okay. And that's really that era, but really, and we've played off, so like that's the jazz I love most. Like Ronnie Laws, Grover Washington.
Right. Well,
that's where I'm pouring a lot of stuff into. Definitely Hugh Masekela. Shout out to Hugh Masekela. And like this feel of like, I don't know, just that era of jazz. And then clearly, I mean, with those Detroit connections, the Blackbirds.
Yeah. I mean, the entire time that's going on, I'm also listening to like, WDET, the Ed Lowe Show, and I'm listening to V98.7.
Okay.
That was I was listening to V98.7 like pretty much, on and off for my whole childhood.
So let me talk about V98.7. So right now 98.7 is a whole nother station, a whole nother format, but for the longest it would play smooth jazz, which certain jazz enthusiasts, especially like shout out to Bob when I worked at Harmony House, Bob was like, that's not jazz, because it's like smooth jazz is a feel, but I still like a lot of the smooth like Najee and Marion Meadow.
Yeah,
like
it's cool.
a feel, like
it's a vibe.
It's definitely a vibe. It's certainly not like a Dexter Gordon, Cannonball Adderley. As we talk about, jazz has all of these levels, and I'm sure anybody that listens to jazz would be thinking, Khary, how do you know this much about jazz? I rarely get somebody in here to talk jazz with.
Right.
So now I can talk it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm kind of like an allmusic.com. I used to work at a record store. You need to check out some of this stuff. I need to actually, from here, I may make a Spotify playlist of some of my favorite jazz. I may accompany that with this interview.
Yeah, that would be dope. Because they used to have like V98.7, and then even before that, there was like JZZ, which I think that when I was really young, they had like just kind of like the little fumes of, but that type of music was definitely, because smooth jazz wasn't just it was stuff like the Grover Washington, the Ronnie Laws, the like Paul Hardcastle, Rainforest, stuff like that. It was a whole vibe, and that to me is one of my earliest That's my earliest kind of like
But
memory.
but also, like, I mean, to act like a Michael Franks concert
Oh,
is not about to get packed out. I mean,
in Detroit, it's about to be packed.
it's a reason why the Aretha will welcome in those. And also, Alexander Joneschek,
Mhm.
that connection, I think, is a lot of 98.7. So that station, I remember when it flipped, I'm like listening to it. I'm like, wow, this is weird because, when people are around, it's like, why are you so mellow? Why are you so mellow? I'll work out, listen to so many podcasts, or I get hyped most times. And I
Mhm.
love hip hop, but it's so weird because it's like you're a rapper that's listening to 98.7 people just with that's where
Man,
life will be.
98.7 was the vibe though. I'm like,
It was definitely a moment. It was definitely
man,
a moment in time. Um and then even like the jazz shows with 90.9 FM. Rest in peace
yeah.
to Judge Claudia Morcom, one of my
Mhm.
big homies that held down the jazz show for so many years, and just really talking about this relationship between jazz and so much of Black folks,
Right.
which the other music I love, which I think I play more, which people kind of know, is blues. But the
Mhm.
relationship between blues and jazz and how that intersects and really creates so many other forms of American music,
Mhm.
those are the roots.
Yeah, blues. Definitely. I mean, and in my jazz education, they always stress the importance of the blues. I mean, it's the roots of jazz. It's the roots of basically all Black music. And yeah, it exists in jazz as a song form. Like,
Mhm.
you'll have a lot of songs that have different melodies, but their chords are the blues chords.
Yeah.
And that's a fixture of jazz. I mean, there's that in jazz, and then there's like another thing called rhythm changes, where it's the changes to the song "I Got Rhythm" by George Gershwin, and they take that song and also have like any kind of different melody over it. So those forms exist to this day in jazz. But yeah, the blues is definitely a thing that yeah it evolved in its own way, and then it kind of spawned jazz, and then it continued, and then the blues continued to evolve too. So
Yeah. And as Keith Richards said in a drunken interview one time, it's like you got to be old enough to appreciate the blues. Because yes, I
yeah.
think blues is old folks music, so it's not going to be a lot of young folk kind of connecting. But life will have you pulling out that Bobby Bland, like, yes, I know what the brother's
Yeah.
talking about.
Mhm.
I know what the
Yeah,
brother's
you
talking.
gotta live a little bit to be able to understand that kinda thing, like,
Yeah.
it's definitely yeah, it's interesting, blues, like, I don't think I listen to a lot of just, like, Chicago blues and stuff like that. I need to, but it's
Mhm.
more so I've kind of, like it's more so I'm just interested in the lives of these blues musicians,
I
like,
would say
man.
start with my guy Bobby Bland when I think about that Delta Chicago blues, and you
Mhm.
never go wrong.
Yeah.
Start with Bland and just go from, his first hit, Further Up the Road. Start there. And
Alright.
then you'll do a deep dive and you'll be like, man, and then his life story is very interesting as well. But I mean, to
Mhm.
play the blues, you're gonna have an interesting life story. They like
Yeah.
I look at them like wrestlers or something.
Mhm. Yeah, they definitely have legendary lives, like Robert Johnson,
Mhm.
the man, just
Yep.
just crazy, I mean, but also just interesting in that, yeah, like, the lives and times that they were living in too, just
Yep.
insane times in America.
Mhm,
Just
and then playing, like, and those connections. So as we
mhm.
talk about playing in those connections, you've been at this for a while.
Yeah.
So you make that connection that you wanna be a musician even at that early age as a teenager as you're getting paid for these hits?
Yeah, I think that I also had it in my mind, like, this is the thing that I'm good at. Like,
Mm,
I'm not it wasn't like I was really kind of, showing tons of promise in other things, like, I wasn't athletic, I wasn't really good at math, I think the other thing I was good at in school was writing, like, I can write an essay, I can write, like, anything, I'm good at writing, I'd say,
mhm,
and my dad worked at the Detroit Free Press.
mhm.
He, was both my parents are coming from, like, a writing background, so that was my other sort of, um strength, but music really was my passion and my actual strength, and it was encouraged too
By your parents.
by my parents. I mean, they were like, "This is clearly something that you're showing that you're like clearly like really good at this," type vibes.
Okay. All right. So in that scope, you're enjoying this, you're playing,
Hmm.
and I do remember our introduction because it was
Yeah.
through Alex White. Shout out to Mr. White. That's what
Shout
I
out to
like to
Alex
say.
White.
Be like, Mr.
Yo,
White.
though.
Yes. And then he was like, "Yeah, yeah, I may get Fink on this." And then I'm like, "Okay." And then he was like, "Yeah, man, he does something. I did like 2 shows with you." And and this is like he's playing behind me, getting on stage, jumping around and writing words that rhyme together.
Hmm.
And one of the people in the audience was like, "Man, I just was reading about him. He's like one of the top musicians." I was like, "Yo," I was like, "Yo, Ian, what's up with this?" You were recognized early on in your artistry, oftentimes for your style of play and your skill at playing and talent at playing.
Hmm.
How did you start taking to a lot of the, accolades and awards more so because you were young, but getting a lot of recognition that even people that have played for years may not get?
I was definitely seen as a very talented and promising young musician. Um, I was recognized in that by people that would see me. I also looked really, really young at that
Mhm.
time, so people were definitely like, this kid is a prodigy." So
Yes.
type vibes, but you know, I guess in a way that did help me sort of be like, okay, like this is something that you can take some confidence in as a person. Like you can kind of be like, this is clearly your thing. Other people recognize that you're good at this. And so it was something that I definitely like did not try to let like throw me off of my work and stuff like that and kind of things like that. You don't want to be too, and I also tried to stay humble because you should stay humble generally in life. So it definitely gave me confidence in that. It made me feel like, okay, I'm a person that can, because I think a lot of people in life, when they're doing music, they get the idea from somewhere. Maybe it's from outside or maybe it's from inside that they are not really, this is not something that I'm not one of the people that can really do this kind of thing, which is sad. And it makes them kind of like think that that's the only way you can do music is kind of just by like,
Outside validation.
yeah, outside validation, or like it can only be if you can, accolades or all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
for me, it was just kind of like I'm just trying to get as good as I can so that I can be as good as I can, and I wanted to perform at a high level. I wanted to perform with other musicians that were on like a high level, and I wanted to build a recorded body of work that is still kind of my main kind of goal is to build a strong body of recorded work. I've always been really obsessed with records, and my whole life has just been about listening to CDs and records and music just overall. So for me, that has been the thing that for me is the ultimate kind of um hope, is that I can leave behind a very strong body of recorded work.
Mm. And as you talk about that, you can only imagine me at my age, older than you guys, but still, it just throws you sometimes because you just don't know who's rocking with you, and that's how I knew you had a different relationship with this, and not just you. I mean, you, Marcus, Alex, all of you all, and your
Hmm.
commitment to this
Yeah,
because yeah, I got you on, I'm rapping about my old school Chevy and it's like you leading off and everything with organ chords and things like that. And I'm like, do this, try this, and da 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 da,
yeah,
right? And it's like one of those people that's like that I know that's really respected. That's like, yo, man, you got like, you know what I'm saying? Like you just don't see it. It'd be almost like you're playing pickup basketball with, I don't know, like Ant-Man or something, you know what I'm saying? And somebody recognizes like, "Yo, you know that's Ant-Man on your
Got ant.
spine." Like, "For
Yeah.
real? I didn't even know that." You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I'm like, "Anyway, pass me back the ball." You know what I'm saying? So,
Exactly.
like, it was those things and all of you all, like, challenging one another. So, you are in this space and that humility, that's what really stood out. Cause then I started, like, recognizing, like, okay, all right, all of you all have a different focus towards how you want this artistry to be
Mhm.
and keeping that humility as the accolades come. How do you end up balancing that at a young age?
Mm, well, it was weird, I guess, because in school, I was kinda, like, living in a different kind of place, like, it wasn't like it was weird, it was almost like, in a sense, I had, like, a kinda double life type situation because in school, like, actual middle school and high school, I really was not people knew that I was talented in a way, and they knew that I was like, "Oh, yeah, Ian's, like, a talented piano player and this and that." And some people were like there were some people that were like, "Whoa, like, that's really dope," but overall, I didn't really feel like that kinda transferred into my actual high school and middle school life, like, I was not in, like, in a place that was like I didn't go to DSA, I mean, I almost went to DSA at one point, like, my parents almost sent me there, but I went to a regular high school,
Mhm.
and so I was not like this celebrity
Yeah.
or anything like that, I was always kinda respected by people that like jazz and like music and were like adjacent to saw me at Civic Jazz Orchestra or saw me in jazz settings. Like people like jazz people in Detroit, like in music lovers in Detroit
Mhm.
and around here have been seeing me since I was like 14 or 15.
Definitely, because it was actually another person that said that. He was like, "Man," it was Jallo. Shout out again to Jallo. Jallo was like, "Man, you ain't on here." You know what I'm saying? I was like, "Yeah." I mean, I was like, "Yeah," because Alex K come, you got to come. We gonna rock. It's gonna
Mhm.
be fun,
Yeah.
and just piecing it together. And now, as that's happening, now let's transition as time kind of moves on. You start developing your own voice in music and you start really moving your own thing. Um, Even beyond like playing with so many other people,
Mhm.
because at this point, even from a young age, you're playing with legends,
Mhm.
but now this idea of building your own thing, and it seems like simultaneously it includes other forms of music.
Yeah. Well, what happened with that is that, like, after college, after I was really studying, I was studying jazz all the way through college. I went to University of Michigan, studied with Jerry Allen, the great Jerry Allen, rest in peace,
Mm,
and, got out of there and moved back here
mhm.
and then got into techno and house, which I was already kind of into, like, stuff like Aphex as I said, like, Aphex Twin and Whitaker and, like, Boards of Canada, and I was into, like I at the end of college, I got no, at the end of high school, I got into Dilla, so I was into Dilla, I was into stuff like that, but it was like I was into what they call IDM, they call it there's, like, this genre called IDM, and it's
What's that?
it stands for intelligent dance music, which is actually, like, kind of, very weird and elitist, but
Hilarious.
yeah, it's really ridiculous, I mean, because it's stuff that is spawned from, like, Detroit techno.
Wow.
Basically, I moved back here and started to really understand the fact that, like, Detroit techno and, also house music, which is from Chicago, I guess, like, all that stuff is, like, the base of all the stuff that I was already liking,
Mm.
and it also is a thing too that and I think the thing there was that in jazz, you're very much kind of attracted or drawn to the idea that you need to be in New York or somewhere else than Detroit to really make it pop off and make a living and everything. But as I graduated college, I became acquainted with like the house and techno scene and saw that like because first of all, I mean the other thing is that like Detroit had there like by 2013, 14, like Detroit was kind of in a different place than when I was in like 2008, 2009 kind of vibes. So there was that to a certain degree, but it was also more to the fact that like I had met these people who were Detroit-based musicians that were traveling the world, and they were based in Detroit, and they were recognized and loved for being from Detroit.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And they were also because they were also very like connected to jazz in Detroit too. I started to realize the deep connections between Detroit jazz and the Detroit house and techno scene.
Open up about that. Who are the people and what's the relationship?
Well, the first person that I met that really kind of taught me about everything was Scott Grooves, who is a legend of house music, like, but kind of also one of the more stays out of the spotlight kind of dudes. Like, he's definitely a particular kind of guy that like we were well suited because he's also just very musically. He's a musician first, and he really comes from there. And he's like, so I met him at a party at TV Lounge in 2014, and I picked up his CD, and he had Keith Kaminsky on one of his songs. He had basically some people and Thornetta Davis. Like, he had like some people that I was like, oh, I recognize these people. I've played with them before.
Mm-hmm.
So I got hooked up with him and started listening. That same day I bought one of his CDs, and I was like, it was like the best shit ever. Like, I was like, this is like the best music I've ever heard. Like, so I got into that type of music, and then I got into, Theo Parrish and the other kind of like Kenny Larkin, all those people, like all the like Carl Craig type stuff, and other various house and techno artists from here. And then it was a thing, and Moody Man, also huge. Moody Man, Andreas, DJ Dez, like I got into like Andreas, the album Andreas 2, Marcellus Pittman, like all that kind of stuff. That was interesting because you're talking about, I don't think I'd ever had an experience of like being so into someone's music that you're like really, really into it, and you're like, it's like the same as getting into, someone that's like, like Miles Davis or someone like that. You're looking up to these musicians on a certain level, and they're actually here, and you can run into them wherever, like in Detroit kind of thing. And then that just was like a different experience. It was like, I started to see that I was taught how to press records up. I was basically taught about the whole culture, the whole music thing, and it was all like adjacent to DJ culture.
And as this is taking off, because clearly we're getting closer to where you at now, and the hat that I got on right now, and everything.
Press hat.
You also, like I say, over time, I opened the interview with that. You're like reading like revolutionary books and different things, because that one time we came and we did a couple rehearsals over at your spot. You're always reading so much about like different things in society.
Yeah.
How is that impacting the music as well? And what's gravitating you to the stuff you're grabbing and reading?
I mean, I've always been a big reader. When I was like really, ever since I was young, I was reading a whole lot of stuff, everything. And I'm definitely interested in stuff about race, stuff about blackness and black people, especially in America, I guess, like, and just the whole kind of situation of it all. And I definitely around like, and I think I had the experience that a lot of other black people had, like around the time with Mike Brown and like the Trayvon Martin situation that kind of ushered in that whole, it was, that was a pivotal time. And then it also to learn about the history of Detroit in a deep, deep way, which I had not actually known, which was very interesting to know about how all these like places that I had been throughout life, all these suburbs and the city of Detroit itself was like, ground zero for some of the most insane racial tension and racism, and still is, like, in the whole country, you know what I mean? Like, down to learning about just this neighborhood, like, the whole thing of it all, like, is definitely something that I've always been, like, learning about and trying to understand, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's deep because, yeah, that definitely stood out, your books, because I was like, "Okay, he's reading something different."
Yeah.
Now, in that same space of those books
Mhm.
and what you're connecting to there, as I say, what's also running concurrent, man, is I see this expansion of different feel of the music. And a
Mhm.
lot of the other guys was like, "Hey, man, Ian playing like something completely different. He playing something completely different." It's actually my homie that's like my brother, Sterling Toes, that was like,
Sterling, love him.
"Yeah, man, Ian, man, he coming over here working with this and working with that." I was like, "Hey, man, I guess it's a whole different feel, whole different vibe." And I was so used to seeing you with the fro and everything, the feel change, and I'm like, "Yo, this is a different feel, different flow." It's like production. It it feels it feels like so much more of that expression that I guess was always going on in the head, but
Mhm.
expanded not just to you, but almost like leading an experience through the music.
Yeah, I mean, I got into production in I got into, like, actually trying to make stuff, like, probably my senior year of high school, and then throughout college, tried to figure out how the stuff worked, but was, like, really kind of, like, not that good at figuring this stuff out. But then after college, I really started to get in and I went and I studied, like, recording in college too. But, yeah, I got into, like, the the practice of making electronic music, and then I was just, like, really kind of obsessed with it. Like, it's kinda just, like, been an obsession, different gear, different production styles, trying to, just do a wide range of different things, and that has been the thing for me that's kinda, like, pushed the whole thing forward. It's been all that and making records, you know what I mean? Like, the knowledge that you can make a record and press it up, and so you start to think about your music in terms of how you can curate your musical output. And so for me, it's been that. It's been kind of a process of refining and curating the musical output. I mean, I've put out like several house and kind of techno oriented projects, but I also have done multiple projects of like live jazz. I've done like a solo piano album. All of it's been released like on Freak Press, which is my record label. And I just started to I was starting to learn the process of how all these kind of people, how all these house and techno, like, sort of, they have their own just kind of labels. They do their own thing. I don't know of like another city where there's such a strong group of just kind of like curator, musician, DJs, all that kind of thing. Like that, Detroit is definitely a place where it's encouraged that you do so in a way that's like very self-focused and very like kind of individually. And then I mean the other thing about it that we also didn't talk about is Video 7.
Yeah.
Yes, which is like
Explain Video 7.
Video 7, shouts out to Video 7, was, I guess I should say, it was a group of, like, producers, musicians, like, singers, like, all kinds of it was like a collective of art.
Yeah,
It was
it
like an
was.
artist collective, basically,
Yeah.
started by me and Brendan Asante, who was a friend of mine who's a friend of mine that I met at U of M, um, who runs Jerkin Jollof, which is that, like, an African party situation.
Mhm.
Shouts out to Asante. So we co-founded this thing called Video 7 and met a ton of just incredible musicians. We met Morgan Hudson, who now goes by Cecile, formerly Super Cool Wicked. Saleka Star. We had Donald Rowland the third, who I met through Sterling. Like I met, we had CJ Hill, Milo from High Tech was in Video 7. It was like a ton of different people. Sasha Kashperko, Jake Shattuck, like people that were formerly like jazz players or who are jazz players that I knew through through high school civic stuff, got roped into that. So it was like this big, very interesting
music collective
percolation thing where you just had all these musicians that were just like really working together very regularly and making beats and just like making a lot of new music, doing performances. That was like really my first serious, like, this was a very serious group of friends and musicians and minds, and that really had a big impact on me, like in my kind of like post-college thing. That was like my home base was Video 7. I was doing Video 7 stuff like almost first and foremost at that,
I remember that moment. It was so cool watching you all because it was almost like a crew of rappers coming together, but you all weren't rappers per se. And the energy. It was definitely good energy. You also uplifted another one of my favorite guys to play with, the Crushing Russian, as I always call him. He probably hates when I call him Sasha, the Crushing Russian.
He's the baddest.
Yes.
He's definitely the man. I mean, I call Sasha for pretty much everything when I need a guitarist. Like, and he makes insane beats. The stuff that he does is like, he's an incredible producer, and he's also just been a great friend too.
Yeah, and watching you all travel the world and everything, it's like I have as I said, I gotta get out of retirement with the shout out to Petty Propolis and Tawana Honeycomb Petty. And at Petty Propolis this year, I will perform for the first time in, I can't even tell you.
Oh, hell yeah.
Maybe when I did the DIA show in 2016.
2016?
Yeah, man.
Damn.
Yeah, man.
That's crazy.
I know. I couldn't believe that Khary Kimani Turner grabbed the mic again before I did. So it's like, all right, I got Tawana for that. It's gonna be fun, but it's tough because that's Labor Day. I'm like, all the guys that I used to play with, all them cats is definitely gonna be booked for Labor Day.
Oh yeah, it's a jazz festival.
Arts Beats and Eats or something. They playing.
Hit us up though. I mean,
but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But yeah, man, it's you all have become, right now, I feel, have kept growing to be like a face of music, especially with what you're doing right now. And what you're doing now is, like I say, it's a whole experience where people talk about it and see it and feel it. How does it feel now, like orchestrating these visions in music, and with like really seeing everything play out? What is the what's the next look with the music? What do you see next? What's the next what are the things you're working on now?
Right now, I mean, well, to speak to the Freak Press situation, yeah, it started out as my record label, and it is the thing that I, it's the umbrella under which I do all my projects. And the last thing that we've done was during Movement Fest. We had a big party called the Freak Press Ball, which is an annual party that happens during Movement Fest week. It happens Wednesday before it basically happens the Wednesday before the festival starts.
So like it kicks off the festival.
It kicks off the festival, basically. One person said that it was like the Palo Santo of their Movement Fest week, you know what I mean?
Hilarious.
So yeah, no, that was good. So basically it's a big party, and what it's been is, this year I had like a 12-piece band, you know what I mean? I had like like 3 percussionists. I had Des Andreas on congas. I had 3 incredible vocalists, Cecile Saleka Star and Jamila Minter. I had Tim Shellabarger on bass, Sasha on guitar, Caleb Robinson on drums. Basically just like a huge. I had Marcus Elliott on sax. Shout out to Marcus Elliott.
Shout out to Marcus.
Shout out to Marcus. And Jake Shattuck too. So yeah, like a lot of a very big band with the aim of just having like an epic performance. You know what I mean? In the style of like some of them, the maximalist, like a show kind of thing, like Parliament. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. So yes, it was a really, really good show. And then we had like Scott Grew. Scott Grew performs like after every year. He's like the kind of like official DJ for all that stuff, because that stuff also dates back to when I was this party also dates back before it was even called the Freak Press Ball, to when I was playing at Motor City Wine for like 4 years every Wednesday.
Yeah.
So there was that. That was another chapter of the whole
story.
But right now the Freak Press thing is like the projects that are percolating there are, number one, I have another solo piano album that I'm finishing, produced by an incredible Detroiter named Kamau Kenyatta, who also is from this area.
Yeah.
I got, that band that I was talking about for the Freak Press Ball is called Ian Fink CPT. The CPT stands for Celestial People's Time.
Okay.
And so that group, we're about to get in the studio as well. You know what I mean? So a lot of different things are percolating right now. Chiefly that solo piano thing, that's going to be big. That's like one of the biggest, like, and most probably best, like, projects that I've ever put out. You know what I mean? It was properly recorded on a serious piano type vibe. Like,
okay. Very
serious project. It's going to be really good. But with Freak Press, it's also been a thing about, there's the record label aspect where you're putting out projects. There's the, merch aspect, obviously. I'm getting into merch because, that's life. And also I just like having, I tour. So, you know what I mean? It's like when you tour, you want like really comfortable stuff that's just like solid and looks good. So it's like, that's kind of where I feel like
the hat feels solid. It will get wears again, my brother.
Yes. Thank you, bro. Man, Rocket in good health.
Will.
They're about to be up for sale on my Instagram as well. So I'm about to be pushing them throughout the summer. You know what I mean?
Well, when I put the reels up, you'll be able to tag and say, get what Khary's wearing.
Dope.
There you go.
Awesome. Yeah. So, and then there's the event side of things, which is like, that is something that I am working towards it being a thing where I can sustain, like, doing more events than just the Freak Press Ball, because, man, I mean, doing that,
I already know.
It takes a lot of organizational acumen that and I've had a ton of help. My creative partner, Saleka Star, was also like, hugely, hugely crucial in that, as well as like the core of musicians that I was working with. So I have and it's like one of those things where things are getting to the point that you're actually like, damn, I guess I gotta ask for some serious help from people, like, kind of thing. So I'm embracing the community aspect of it and trying to do more Freak Press events, because I'm just seeing it as something that'll
grow.
Yeah, something that will grow, something that can be bigger than just me, something that can kind of but something that can encapsulate all the stuff that I want to do.
I'm looking forward to it, and offline we're gonna definitely rap about that.
Yeah.
That's what I bet. That's where you're like, Detroit is different. That's what we do.
It is different, exactly.
Media and events,
and
we can bring some media to the event and vice versa.
Exactly.
So we definitely gonna mix that
to the
up.
media, media to the events, media to the media,
all day. We doing all of that, man.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming and sharing your story.
Oh,
you're gonna definitely come back, my brother.
Definitely. I'll definitely be back. Thank you for having me so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And
now I gotta ask you the classic questions of Detroit is different. But before that, how do people connect to the music? If they want to cop, where do they get it?
All right, so I'm a first start by saying go to my Bandcamp, Ian Fink, IANFINK.bandcamp.com. That's where you should start. I'm working on getting it on streaming. And go on Instagram. My Instagram is Ian Fink. I'm sure it will be tagged and everything. But yeah, that's I would say where you can start.
Okay. All right. With that being said, classic Detroit is different questions.
Yes.
Very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
I had an Oldsmobile Silhouette, a 1997 Oldsmobile Silhouette. It was like teal, and I got it in 2007.
Okay. So it had a decade on it.
Yeah, it did.
It's double digits.
That was not a great era for like GM cars for real. I mean, those minivans they had the same minivan. It was like the Pontiac vibe and like the Oldsmobile Silhouette and the Chevy, like I forget what it was. But yeah, that was not a proud time in terms of just like the interior plastic stuff. Oh man, it was falling off like that. That was definitely a time of, that car was...
It got you from A to B.
It definitely got me from A to B, and then died when I was, died after maybe 2 years.
Didn't get to see
year
3.
No, it was good though. It was definitely a great car.
Where's the first place you went when you got it?
I went to Wendy's.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Dave Thomas, patronizing.
Yep. I mean, it was like, it's kind of weird though, because the first place I went when I got it, I guess I was given it when I got my license, but I had been driving it already for quite a while, type thing. But yeah, the first place I went alone in the car was to Wendy's.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. Shout out to Nuggets.
No, it was the chicken strips. You remember that time back in 2007 and 8? They had them and they still have them in Canada. They had those chicken strips, and those were good as hell.
I do not remember that, my brother.
They discontinued them in
in America.
Yeah.
In American territory.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
See? All right. So, next question.
Yes.
You're the DJ, which you've been this before.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the fireworks, Woodward and Jefferson, you get to play 2 songs. What songs you playing?
After the fireworks are done?
Mm-hmm.
I would maybe play like Journey to the Light by Brainstorm. And then I would play I was thinking about the first thing that popped in my head was After the Love Is Gone by Earth, Wind & Fire. I don't know why.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess those 2.
There we go. You never go wrong with the elements.
Yeah.
Last question.
Yes.
You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
I would name it after... I guess I would name it after Aunt Fiddler.
Shout out to Amp.
Aunt Fiddler definitely can get some streets named after him for real. You know what I mean? And you could say, you could say Dilla, you could say, you could also say Coleman Young. There's a handful. I guess I'd have to think about that for a while. Cause do you want it to be like a musician or an art figure, or do you want it to be like a...
It's you. It's you naming it.
I would go with Aunt Fiddler.
Shout out to Amp.
You can go ahead and get more than one street named after him. I feel like they should have named all of East 7 Mile after him, just straight all the way down, and then
I like that.
Yeah,
Amp, legend.
Yeah, we were just fine too.
Legend.
Yeah, a legend. Or Stevie Wonder.
There you go.
Oh
He's
man,
been
Stevie
uplifted
Wonder.
before.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's true. And he also just got like what, like Milwaukee and
Mhm.
Woodward type thing. Like, yeah, you could say Stevie Wonder. I would say Stevie Wonder maybe is like he could definitely be considered the greatest living Detroit musician.
Look at you loving them key players. I
Yeah,
feel you. But
you
you
gotta
got
hand
to.
it to him. I mean,
You got to.
who is greater?
You got to. With that being said, thank you so much, my brother.
Thank
This
you,
is a
Khary.
Detroit is different.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Oh, all mine. And like I say, I'm dusting off the dust of the microphone.
Nice, man. I'm
I'm
excited.
gonna jump
for that.
around and put them words together.
Good. I'm excited for that because you be definitely killing that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited I'm excited for you to go back to that because I also like when people go back to the craft. You know what I mean? It's like because life happens. You know what I mean? Life does things, especially when you get to this age, that things just happen. And it's not like when you're young and you're like, oh man, I'm about to be just like doing this art shit just permanently and I'm never gonna, you know what I mean? Just life things happen. But I also love when people can go back to it with a new revitalized sense of purpose. So I'm excited for that.
Hey, well, it's coming. It is coming, my brother.
Awesome.
I'm gonna be submitting demos. Get that Khary Frazier on Freak Purse dropped.
Oh hell yeah.
I'm with it. With that being said, peace.
Peace.